Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1798. Oh, it's getting up there. Family heirlooms that family don't want. What do you do with them? I mean, if you're in the process of going through things and starting to sort out things that you're starting to downsize or just starting to downsize, just straight out starting to downsize, or you decide to have a spring clean and you've got all of this stuff that's been passed down through generations. You've got stuff that's come from other family members and things, and nobody in your family wants it. Like, you're downsizing and you're going, hey, who wants this from, your great grandmother, or this from your third great grandfather, or you start listing off who these items come from. These items could be dishes, they could be furniture, toys, jewelry, blankets, fabrics, knickknacks, clothing, and art. When you're going, clothing, yes, clothing, like wedding dresses, wedding suits. You never know. There's all sorts of things that get passed down through generations. And artwork. So there's all these, and it could be like things that have been brought back from overseas, things that cannot be sold, that they've got a ban on selling them, so you can't sell them. So what do you do with them? That's a really good question. There are some items out there, like if you imported, if you brought back with you in the day, like things that were carved out of ivory, you cannot sell ivory anymore. So there was a ban on bringing it in. There were, and so if you do have any pieces made from ivory, you can't sell them. It's actually against the law to do that. So what do you do with them? So when you're asking family members what they want and things like that, and you're starting to clear out, maybe you're not downsizing. Maybe you're going through your grandparents' place or a parent's place after they have passed, and you're now clearing the house out. That's the last surviving grandparent, the last surviving parent. So now the house needs to be cleaned out, and you're coming across all of these heirlooms and things, and people start telling stories about them or things like that. And what do you do? What do you do with this stuff? So let's talk about this, because space is limited in what you can take, and you really probably don't want to put it into storage. So you've got limited space in your place. Others have limited space in their place. Or family members just don't want them. Or it could be that the item may get broken or have degraded over time. Or it could be that the item has actually been lost. It could be that you're looking for an item and you can't find it anywhere. So why not, while you still have the items and you want to preserve them for future generations without having to pass them down? Because some things are bulky. Some furniture pieces are bulky. I know my parents have at their place a desk that has a fold down flap. It has two bits that come out the side, and this flap folds down, and then you've got the desk all opened up and all that. That was my grandfather's, my maternal grandfather's. My parents also have this coffee table that was round. I will explain the was round in a moment. That was round and had 4 legs on it, but between each leg there was a quarter of a smaller table that was nested underneath. My grandmother had actually made that. And so when my parents got it, my dad, there was a seam where the circular wood pieces joined up to make the circle, and there was a seam there. And so he went across with his saw and just cut through that seam and finished it all off and everything else. So now in their house, they have these 2 not quite half tables, because the seam wasn't down the center of the table. It was just over a little bit. But they still also have the quarter tables as well that were underneath. And so they repurpose them around the house, just in a different way. So they don't have the big circle taking up space. They've got more of these semicircles taking up space, with the quarter tables underneath. So, things like that. So what do you do with this stuff if family members don't want it? Well, how about doing things like taking photos of the items and then writing the story behind the item? How did it come into the family? Did somebody in the family make this? What was the occasion in which this was given? What other things could you do? Where did it come from? How long has it been in the family? Has it been in the family for generations? Who was the very first person to get it? So which will help age the item as well. And things might say, oh, we'll just take to an antique dealer or blah, blah, blah. Know the story behind it first. I mean, if you ever see any of the antique roadshows, they always want to know the story behind the item. So, my father picked this up at a flea market. This has been in my family for like 3 generations, and they all have a story to tell about that item. What is the story for that item? So like, I've shown this before. This is my, oh, hang on. This is the little stuffed dog I gave to Brad one year. See, cute little stuffed dog, isn't it? But this mason jar, oh, it's quite dirty inside, isn't it? I made in kindergarten when I was 4 years old. This is a plaster that's on here, and we had to pick the color paint powder that we wanted mixed with it. And then once we put it on there, we then got to press all of these shells in. Now, for something that is 53 years old, it has actually lasted pretty well. There's a couple of places where the shells have broken off, but overall, it's in pretty good shape. So I could write a story about this because I still remember the day that this was made. And I remember actually telling them I wanted to use black, and got told that black wasn't a color. I had to choose another one. So I chose red. But as you can see, it came out of this, it actually came out more pinker than, I don't know if you can see this down here, but there's that pink there is what the original color was, but this is just distorted in color over the years and came out to more of a pinky orangey color. But, I've got a story. I can tell the story behind this about the day it was made and everything else, and how it's traveled with me everywhere. Oops, a piece just fell off. It's just a little slither. Let me just put that in the trash down here. So I could take a photo of this from different angles so they get to see all of the different shells that were on there, and tell the story about how I made this in kindergarten when I was 4 years old. So there's one thing I also have, which I couldn't bring in here because it's not unpacked. It's actually in a box. I also have I have a bone china cup and saucer with a serving plate underneath it, just the little one. We call them bread and butter plates in New Zealand. I've got no idea what you guys call them, but they're not the dinner plate. They're not a salad plate. They're smaller than that. There's one that you have off to the side next to the fork, which you use for buttering your bread on. That's why we call it a bread and butter plate. Maybe one that you use for toast for breakfast in the morning, if you're just having toast. But so I have this bone china cup, saucer, and bread and butter plate that my grandmother gave to her mother. Now, my grandmother was 16 when she bought these 3 pieces and gave them to her mother for her birthday. So that's the story behind that. So I can take photographs of it and tell the story and tell that little story as well. So it's just, taking photos of the items and writing the stories about them. Now, what happens when you start telling these stories? Cool things start happening, like you start they start triggering other memories and other stories. So write those down too, or take out your phone, put it on record and voice record it. And then you can have it, you could do a little video like, here is my vase that I made when I was 4 years old. This is how it was made, blah, 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 and tell the story about it. And as you do it, just slowly rotate it so people can see it. Now you have a digital record of this jar that got turned into a vase, back in 1970. No, 1971. 1971, hang on. Yeah, 1971. This was made in 1971. Now do the math. That's 53 years ago. So yeah, that was made in 1971 when I was in kindergarten. And, I can, sit here on video and tell the story that way rather than writing it out. Now, what happens, as if you have watched me for a while, you will know that this happens, that as I'm talking about something, it triggers a memory for something else. And I have a squirrel moment and go off on another tangent and tell a story about, it could be about the kindergarten. We had to, my mum would pin an envelope to my clothes every morning. And then that envelope was, I think it was 20 cents, either 10 cents or 20 cents, which was the payment for kindergarten at the time. I'm not exactly sure what the money was for, but there was either a 10-cent piece or a 20-cent piece in there. I can't remember which, but yeah. But, this kindergarten was really cool. They had this big old-fashioned cash register sitting there too, with lots of buttons on it. And it was gorgeous. I absolutely loved playing with that thing because I got to press the buttons and press the big button. And when you press the big button, all this total thing comes up the top and boom, out comes the drawer. But anyway, so, you could do it on video. If you don't want to sit and write, do it on video. And that way your future generations get to see, oh, that's what you look like. That's what you sounded like. Hey, that's really cool. We still have that. We still have that base. That's the story behind that. But, that base may get passed on. But do this with different things that you have around the house where you are downsizing and people may or may not want to take that heirloom? Furniture, it can be big and bulky. So is there, something like that? Is there a wedding dress that's been passed down through generations? You're sort of like, yeah, there ain't no way I'm going to wear that. Or, granddaughter, or your children, your daughters don't want to wear it, or your granddaughters don't want to wear it. Nobody wants to wear it. So, maybe it's time to pass on. So why not put it, set it up so that people can see it, take photographs of it, take a video of it, have somebody model it if you want, and tell the story behind the wedding gown. As things get passed down through generations, the stories usually get passed down with them. So take time to take photographs, to make a video of it, or to sit down and write the story that goes with those photographs. And that way you can keep them digitally. You can make an album and put all the stuff in there, that the album that the people can share. There's some great programs out there. I have a really good one that I love to use. So if you want more information about that, just private message me. They will actually take your video. You can actually upload videos. You can upload photographs. You can upload documents as well. I use it for my genealogy clients, where I open an account for them and upload any images of documents that I come across, and I put them into the binders, into albums based on who they are for. Like I set up an album for each person that I'm researching for them, and anything relating to that person goes into that binder, into that album. And yes, it can be shared across albums. So if you've got a copy of a marriage certificate, the husband and wife each get a copy in their own album. So take stories, write down memories. So yes, so as you're doing that, memories will come on, and you want to answer the questions like, how did this item come into the family? What do you know about the item? Do you know when it first came into the family? So it'll help date it. If it was something that was made, who made it? If you're doing artwork, that was done by your great-grandfather. Okay. And that way you've got it, who did it, things like that. So take out those things that family members don't, or even the stuff that you have, whether or not it gets passed down. At least you've got a recording of it now. So if anything should happen to it, you have the recording of it for insurance purposes. We should already have photographs of valuable stuff anyway for insurance purposes. But if you've got the video, then that will back it up. And then there's the story that goes with it. So if anybody comes across that piece later on and they go, what on earth is this? Oh, hang on. I saw a picture of that on, and they go and pull it up, and there's the video that goes with it. And they can turn around, oh, that's what that piece is. I always wonder what happened to that piece. Or, oh, yeah, we don't need that anymore. Let's just give it away or sell it or whatever, because it could be we've decided we don't need that anymore. I also, too, have a, what was that? There was a little thing that just flew across the, I don't see anything flying around. Oh, interesting. The angels are visiting again. I also have a barometer. I should have bought that one in. It's an oak barometer that belonged to, one of my it was either a great-grandfather or a great-great-grandfather. I can't remember which, and I'm going to have to ask my parents again, and I ask them every time I see them, where did this barometer come from? I think it's somebody on my dad's side of the family, because Mum always goes to my dad, where did this barometer come from? So, yeah, and that way I can get the story and actually get that story recorded this time. So maybe I'll get them on Zoom and record it. I don't know. It doesn't work, but it is a beautiful piece. It is made out of oak. It's got a dark stain on it. It's still got all the original workings in it and everything else. I don't know what it would take to make it work. It's a barometer. I don't know. But I love that piece. It's just I just think it's a really cool piece, whether it works or not. I just like seeing it hang on the wall. Of course, I can't hang anything here right now, so it's sitting in a cupboard. Yes. And so, find those pieces around the house now, take photographs of them, do videos of them, tell the story behind them. So if anything should happen to you, your family has access. Sorry, I was just rearranging my piece of paper so it wouldn't fall off with all my notes on it. So your family has access to it. And so if you should pass and they're cleaning out the house and they're coming across this stuff, they then know this story behind that piece. Do they want to keep it? Do they not want to keep it? We've got it digitally recorded. We don't need to keep that piece. Let's sell it. Let's donate it, whatever. But at least they then know the story behind it. And that digital copy of that story, along with the image or the video of that piece, can now be passed down through generations without big, bulky furniture pieces being passed down, or toys, or I don't know, it may still be there. We had a rocking horse when I was a kid. And I can't remember if it was gifted to us or if somebody made it. But we had this really cool rocking horse when we were kids. years later, my parents donated it to the creche that was at our church, or the nursery at the church. And they went back to that church a few years later, and the thing was still there and still in operation. I don't know if it's still there to this day, but that if it is, that thing would be over 50 years old and still going strong. It was very, very well made. I don't know if it's still there. I don't know if they're still using it. But I was amazed that it was still in place when I last heard about it. And that was a few years. I'm trying to think, was it before or after I left New Zealand? I can't remember. I'll have to ask my parents to see if they've been back to see if it's still there. But they ended up doing it. They had three kids that were all in teens or preteens and all that. They had no use for it, so they gave it away. And they gave it to the church, and they got put into their nursery or the creche, and it's been there ever since. As far as I am aware, it may still even be there. And if that is the case, it will be over 50 years old. So yeah, what things do you have in your house? What stories are behind them? Tell those stories. And preserve it for prosperity. Even if it's just the digital copy that gets passed from generation to generation, at least the story behind that item gets passed down, especially if nobody else in the family wants it. Because people might turn and say, "What are they? I don't know." Maybe it could be a quilt that was made. Quilts quite often keep getting passed down through generations. But then again, you've got the wear and tear on that item. You've got so that's the wear and tear takes place, and the item gets to the point where it's sort of like, do we really want to keep this? It looks more like a rag. It's not really useful as a blanket anymore. Maybe it can be restored. Have you talked with a quilter to find out, could we restore this? Things like, look at things like that. Old wedding dresses are ones that usually get passed down through generations as well. What condition is it in? Can it be restored, or is it just something that just needs to be let go? After, of course, you've taken videos and photographs of it, and in fact, that would be a really cool one. If you've got a wedding dress that's been passed down through generations, make a video montage of, here is the dress, walking around the dress, showing, the back of it, the detailing on it, the front of it, or the details on it. Then have a montage of all the weddings, of all the brides who have worn that dress over the years. Wouldn't that be cool? And you've got it in digital then, video montage of all these people who have worn this wedding dress. I wonder what happened to my mum's wedding dress. I know that my mum wore her wedding dress, and then a friend of the family, when she got married, wore my mum's wedding dress. I don't know what happened to it after that. I know that my mum's veil. This is a tragic story for my mum's veil. My mum had her wedding veil, and she still has the tiara to this day. And the tiara had the veil on it. So she carefully took the veil off the tiara. She put it on my bassinet. We had the bassinets with the veil, with the netting that came down. She put it on the bassinet, all beautiful, all ready for me when she was going to bring me home. She didn't know when she was having a boy or girl, but that brand new baby was going in that bassinet with her wedding veil as the netting that went over the bassinet. Well, she came home and the cat had gotten in there and shredded the veil. My mum said she sat down with me and just cried. So that was a tragic ending to her wedding veil. But her tiara, years later, got recovered, and I wore that at my first wedding as part of my attire. That was my something old. But I very proudly wore that. It's a beautiful tiara, and she still has it. And that tiara is almost 60 years old. It'll be 60 years in March since my mum last wore it. So there you go. That's something that's been passed down. Well, actually, it hasn't really been passed. It got borrowed and then handed back. But that's okay. She still has that from her wedding. Somewhere around, and I'm not sure if I have it or if it's at my mum's place, but there is a box where I was a flower girl for my aunt at her wedding in 1972, I think it was. And it was a piece that we got to wear in our hair on the back of our head, and it was a strip that went along that had little pink roses that matched our little dresses, and then it had these little pieces that came down at different lengths with the little flowers on the end of them, and it just stuck in a comb on the back of our head and just hung down the back there. I either have it in one of my boxes or my mum still has it at her place. That's all I've got left. I've got no idea what we did with the dresses, but they were cute little dresses. They had little scalloping around the sleeve, 3/4 sleeves. They had little scallops around the end. They had scallops around the bottom of the skirts, and then where the waist was, we had these little flowers that were the same as the ones in the headpiece. that were around the waist of the little dresses too. They were pink. They were cute. I still look back at the photos, and even though the photos are all in black and white, I can still see those pink dresses. And my mum and the other bridesmaid had dark purple. They had the exact same dress. They had the same style dresses, with the scallops around the thing, the 3/4 sleeves, the flowers around the waist, but they were in dark purple. And Marie and I, we had ours in pink. So, and then they also had the purple headpiece at the back as well. So we were dressed the same, flower girls in pink, bridesmaids and matron of honor in purple. So I still remember bits and pieces of that day. It was a fun day. I remember we got tired and just sat down there on the steps at the front of the church. We were tired. So there's different, there's lots of different things that you've probably still got hanging around the place, and you may have forgotten about them, but as you're sorting through stuff, you come across things and you start remembering the stories behind them. So pull out your phone, do a voice recording of it, or take some pictures of it, maybe do a video of it, and just preserve it for prosperity, for future generations who may not want that stuff when they're clearing out the house. Everybody might just go, anybody want this? No, right, let's toss it. Anybody know the story behind it? Look up. Where's that digital thing that mum made? Let's look it up and have a look. Or that grandma made. Let's have a look. Maybe you can, if they're downsizing and you're there at their place and you're helping downsize, do it right there on the spot. Have them tell the story. It's a great way. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Anyway, I could go on for hours, but we are going to go for our walk now. Tomorrow is the 4th of July. May you all have a super fantastic, sparkling 4th of July tomorrow. And we will be back tomorrow evening at 6 p.m.